Council, staff, Police Foundation's students from Georgian College, and interested citizens, welcome. We are in our regular council meeting now. We've completed our in-camera agenda for this evening. I would like to invite you to a moment of silent reflection, please. Thank you. Are there any additional items? Councillor Boddy.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to make some comments on Canadian Spirit Festival this past weekend.
Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Your Worship, for bringing up an issue about communicating with our riders on the bus.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have some questions regarding recreation.
Councillor Lemon.
Yes, Your Worship. I have two events I'd like to speak about.
Councillor Chamberlain.
Yes, I'd like to talk about the conservation event.
Any other members of council? Members of staff, additional items? Seeing none, any disclosure of pecuniary interest?
Sorry.
Oh, I didn't see your hand.
I just would like to advise that item 9C on this evening's agenda will be deferred. That was a deputation respecting the Owen Sound and North Grey Union Public Library, and it will be deferred to a later date. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Councillor Adair.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I have one on item 9A, is that it's my employer.
Any other members of council? Seeing none. Confirmation of the minutes, please. Held on September 9th. Councillor Lemon.
Yes, sorry. Moved by myself, seconded by Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Boddy, that the minutes of the regular meeting of City Council held September 9th, 2013, as printed, be adopted.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. A resolution moving council in committee of the whole, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Boddy, that City Council now go into committee of the whole to consider public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports and matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We're now in committee of the whole. And we have a number of deputations this evening, and I will invite Sandy Stevenson, the chair of Georgian Bay Symphony Board, with regards to the Georgian Bay Symphony's 2013-2014 season. Welcome.
Thank you. Your Worship and members of council, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak about the symphony tonight. This is the beginning of our 42nd year. And as many of you know, when the symphony had its roots in a group of people who collected to just play music together in a kind of night school format in the 70s, and eventually with some prompting from some Kiwanis festival members, decided to put together the orchestra. So we now have a wonderful orchestra that is made up of community members and some professionals from who play key roles. We're so fortunate. We're running this year 5 main concerts, and we've distributed some programs for you. They should be there. 5 main concerts, 2 afternoon concerts, as well as running a successful, usually successful wine event in the spring. We also play at the Attack Games, and we have a very active youth orchestra. I regularly visit a city in Ohio, Mansfield, Ohio, which is about 50,000 people, and happened to meet a musician, and I had our brochure that day and showed it to him, and his jaw dropped. He said, here with 50,000 people, 1 hour from Cleveland and 1 hour from Columbus, we can manage 2 concerts a year. That's what we're down to. He said, how do you do it? How do you do it? I think that what's important to know is that we have a very supportive community who not only do they support athletics and nature in our community, but they also support the arts. So it's really wonderful that we have the opportunity to provide the symphony experience. You'll see on your program, those of you who have one, we start, all 5 concerts this year feature Canadian composers, which is terrific. An organ symphony will be the first, and it'll be very interesting to host an organ symphony at the OSCVI. The last I looked, there wasn't an organ there. Of course, the Home for Christmas concert is usually always sold out, and it's a really great opportunity for us to bring back young musicians who have played either with a youth orchestra or with a symphony, and now they've gone off to university and they've come back to play with us. And many of you who took part in Sweetwater or were in attendance will know that we've got some incredibly talented young musicians who've grown up in the area. And we're so fortunate to have both Sweetwater and the symphony in this town. In the spring, keep the date, a night at the Proms, the last night of the Proms, which will be quite a British event. So for those of you who like some of those wonderful old pieces, they will be featured in the spring. We have, generally speaking, we must raise enough money to cover about 2/3 of the cost of each concert. So our small volunteer board tries to make sure that we can raise the funds to keep our program running. And we've come up with a community coupon booklet. We've talked about it before. And we've partnered, the symphony basically produces the coupon booklet to support many of our businesses. And then a number of organizations in town will sell the booklet, and it's a shared fundraiser. So hopefully when it comes out in a couple of weeks, you will support it. And the Kiwanis sells the booklets, many service clubs, hockey teams. So we've made it a general community fundraiser. We finally have a new website up and running, and the symphony is on Twitter, and I'm quickly learning how to figure that out. But we've got a wonderful new board member who is very adept at all of those social media strategies, and she assures us that we're getting lots of hits from all over North America. So that's good. We will be running a campaign to sell subscriptions in the next week or so. So we have some volunteers who are going to call from the office, and we have a target of probably adding another 100 subscriptions. So if you haven't got yours yet and you get a phone call, please follow through. And last thing I'd like to mention is that we'd once again like to offer tickets to the final concert at a discounted rate to the city, if in fact that might be a good opportunity to recognize volunteers. So the last night at the Proms will be available for the city to consider that as a volunteer appreciation night. So once again, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about the symphony. It's really enriches our community, I think, and after a weekend of wonderful music, I just feel like we've got so much music and the Spirit Festival. I'm glad Ian's going to talk about that because it's just such a great place to live, right here.
It is indeed.
Thank you very much, and any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much, and thank you for bringing this information to us. Councillor
you.
Lemon.
Well, my congratulations on your fundraising initiative, bringing 2 very important organizations in our community together like that. I think it's a wonderful thing, plus, of course, the teams and things that go out and sell the booklets. I think that's an example of successful fundraising and a different type of initiative. One of the things I've learned over the years, if you're going to raise funds, you've got to do something different than everybody else is doing. And that's uncommon and a very good idea.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Body.
Thanks. Sandy, I've got a question here. Home for Christmas, Saturday, December 14th. There's some music listed there. Dreadlocks. Music called Dreadlocks. That doesn't sound like Christmas or very stuffy. What? That doesn't sound like symphony.
Well,
Who's this Richard Mascow guy? What's he doing?
he's a very creative individual. But I think you will enjoy it. He's got some really unique compositions, and
I remember his pieces from a few years
you'll
ago.
be up
that
dancing.
Homecoming, I think he did a piece for us that was stunning.
It was, yes.
So I look forward to this.
And
Dreadlocks.
Richard is the director of our youth orchestra as well, which we have expanded to the Meaford area this year. So we're trying to, there's a strong group of young musicians in Meaford, and we're trying to save them the drive. So
Sure.
Alternate weeks, the youth orchestra is rehearsing in Meaford, which we hope will bring more people to the symphony and to our beautiful city.
Sandy, I have a question for you. With all of the students that we have here this evening, I'm sure that there's a student rate for symphony
Oh, yes.
events that's quite phenomenal.
$5
There we
for
go.
students to get into the symphony, so.
So, all these students will be there on the first concert is, Saturday, October 26th.
There you go.
$5. It is really quite
Yeah, it's great.
quite an event. It's something else. So congratulations. Look forward to a great season.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our second deputation is Dr. John Totten, Chair, and Dave Alexander, the Vice Chair of the Owen Sound Museums Board, and this is an update on the museums. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Your Worship, members of council, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, the future of the Owen Sound Museums has been much discussed over the last few years, given the challenges that we have faced running two museums with a small budget and a small number of staff and volunteers. After much deliberation, we unfortunately had to come to the difficult decision last fall to close the Marine and Rail Museum, a decision supported unanimously by council twice, but revisited in the past 3 months. The board has met several times over the summer and has given consideration to everything that has unfolded. We attended the meeting at the Royal Canadian Legion and participated in the discussions there. We have been impressed by the outpouring of community support for the continuing operation of the Marine and Rail Museums. After further deliberations, we have decided to follow Council's open-minded example and are here to announce that we are going to keep the Marine and Rail open after December the 31st of this year. With so many people who have come forward with promises of financial support and who are willing to volunteer at the museum, we are willing to change our decision about closing the museum. We have seen how valued the museums are by this community. We appreciate all the work that the Community Waterfront Center has done in raising monies and recruiting volunteers for the Marine and Rail Museum. Given their great success, we would like to invite Richard Thomas and Jeffrey Robbins to head up the volunteer and fundraising committee for the museum. We would also like to invite any of their other board members to be involved in that committee. We would love to recruit their volunteers to begin working at the Marine and Rail as early as October. Subject to Council's approval in principle of our decision, we intend to meet with Mr. Thomas and Mr. Robbins to discuss how the dedicated funds that have been raised by them so far can be utilized by the Owen Sound Museums to keep the Marine and Rail open. Further, the use of these funds will be reflected in audited financial statements in 2014, and we are happy to make a presentation to Council before the end of 2014, which will include an accounting of all the volunteer hours that will have been put in at Marine and Rail by the many people who have offered to work there in order to keep it open. This way, we can give public recognition to all of those who have had a hand in keeping the museum open. I'd now like to turn over the balance of the presentation to my 2IC, Dave Alexander.
Thank you.
By your worship and councilors. We will continue looking at granting and funding opportunities for the care and collection and for our museum programming. And we look forward to working with all those who have been part of the Save the Marine Rail Museum movement. We understand that the city has an RFP out for the building, and we intend to file our own RFP, asking for exactly the same terms that we already enjoy in regards to the occupation of the building. If council selects another proposal, as it is entitled to do so, we will remove the museum collection as expeditiously as possible in order for the building to be made ready for the new tenant. We would like to extend our sincere appreciation to council for its ongoing operational support of the Owen Sound Museums, and to all those who have committed their time and money to ensure that we can continue to operate the Marine Rail Museum. We look forward to presenting the results of this endeavor in our report to council next year. Are there any questions from council at this time?
I'm sure there will be, Councillor. First, I want to say thank you so much for bringing this forward and coming to council. There's so many people in the community that are feeling very strongly about the museums, and no one more so than myself and a lot of members of this council. So I thank you for coming forward with this very collaborative approach to getting the job done. Councillor Adair. Councillor Wright. Councillor Wright would like to go first. Yes.
I don't know if anybody else is speechless, but quite frankly, I am, because I certainly had some questions I wanted to talk to you about, but I think you deserve a round of applause for coming to us for that, and I'm really proud of that. I do realize that we voted at one time as a council, following what you had asked of us, because as a volunteer board, we have to respect what you come to us and say. And by the way, I want to thank you for your work, and I think that Owen Sound has 2 museums that we can be very, very proud of. And I, for one, am very, very happy that we're going to still have 2 museums, because I think I would have been fighting very hard to keep that other museum. Even though I voted against it, I felt very badly about that, because I think it's a very powerful, something very powerful for us to have at the waterfront. And I'm not sure how we go about this, but I know there's an RFP out. I don't know whether anybody has ever answered that RFP, but if there's any chance that we can pull that RFP off the table, then I suggest that we look for that and that we do that to keep that building the way it is. But I'll let staff and the mayor and whoever is looking after that deal with that and bring a report to us about that if that's agreeable. However, that is music to my ears, and I'm sure to many other people in the city of Owen Sound that have been working very hard to try and keep this museum open. So thank you very much for doing that.
Councillor Adair.
Well, just echoing Councillor Wright, I mean, I would hate for a politician to be rendered speechless. I mean, that's what we do. So I'm racing here. With the RFP, I think I noticed a motion tonight to tear up the RFP process. The whole reason we started it was because the museums have said that they were moving out. So if they're not moving out, there's no reason, as Councillor Wright has said. So I would be quite happy once we get to that point in the evening. You know, the public support for keeping the museums open has been quite tremendous. I mean, people as far away as New Zealand have been writing, and in fact, not only just writing support, but my understanding, and from what we've gathered, writing checks as well. And I don't want to sound too mercenary, but I'm always heartened when someone not only just says, well, I think you should do something, but they say, I think you should do something, and here's the check. That means a little bit more, I think, particularly for an arts organization that is seeking funding. We have budgets coming up, Worship, and I wonder at that point we will be talking about the funding that we have been giving to the museums. I'm not saying that we revisit funding. Things are very tight, but given how much the community has come forward with cash, and I'm just thinking for the organization I'm involved in and some others, there's been a lot of matching funding going on. The Arts Fest, the Symphony, and many other organizations just received matching funding from that. I know the Community Foundation is about to launch a matching funding program, and I'm just wondering if at budget deliberations, when we get to this point about talking about funding the museums, if we couldn't look at some kind of matching funding program to match the support that the public has come forward, so that we acknowledge that we're listening to the public as well. I don't, again, I'm somewhat speechless, so I'm not sure that I have a motion. Maybe I will work on something if anyone else is speaking and see what I can come up with a motion to have us. Well, my motion, sorry, I think I will just keep talking, maybe a motion will form, that council, during budget deliberations, look at a matching fund formula for the Marine Rail Museum, public support. I think that kind of encapsulates what I'm thinking. We're not going to do anything tonight. We've got budget coming up, but I think at budget time we should look at that. If the community's coming forward with, 20,000, maybe we match it with 5 or something. I don't know, but I think we need to have it on the radar for the discussions at budget time. So that would be my motion, is that we discuss some kind of matching formula at budget time.
So the motion is to discuss some kind of matching formula at budget time.
To discuss a matching, not some, a
Leaves it
matching
fairly open.
formula, yeah.
Okay, I have a number of speakers. I've
Well,
got
that
you
gives
too, Councillor
staff
Lemon.
time to.
Councillor Purdon.
Yes, everybody's surprised. And I just wondered where the discussion is with the Community Waterfront Center and the group that formed to try and gather community support. Have there been any formal discussions? Is there an agreement with the two groups? Because one of the things that I found, it saddened me in a way with this whole process. There were so many messy things about all of this, but one of the things that saddened me was it felt at times as though there was the community wasn't coming together. There were two community groups that are wonderful volunteers and doing wonderful work, and sometimes it seemed like it wasn't connecting. So is there a connection with the Community Waterfront Center? Are they in agreement with this proposed action? Is it moving forward together, or is the Marine and Heritage Museum?
Well, interaction and discussion is in its nascent phase, and it's like two teenagers who've just met and like each other. We're kind of getting to know each other. No formal agreements. We've met 3 times. They appeared at our last board meeting, and there was a free and frank interchange of ideas. I think it's too early to be concrete in terms of anything contractual or anything that's firm. This is a very fluid type of situation. I see Mr. Lemon shaking his head. I'd love to know what his perspective on this is. But we are being cautious and careful. We're being diligent. As a competent board, I hope everyone agrees that really is trying to be, that we're being agile and nimble, trying to respond to current circumstances rather than being mired in the atavistic maze and mist of past events. We're looking forward, but we're trying to ground our actions and our perspective in the firm appreciation of the reality of the moment. Don't know whether that helps or not.
So you've had some conversations, and will they be ongoing? Is that the plan, that there will be ongoing conversations? There was an invitation this evening offered to.
If this indeed is a process, a gestation process, which will lead to the issue of some productive cooperative venture, then yes, of course, it will be, but almost by definition, ongoing. Because these two entities can't operate in a vacuum or separate from each other. There has to be, at the very least, a symbiosis in terms of how we interact and how we proceed.
So I really think that's very, very important. Communities like ours, there's a limited number of volunteers, and anything we can do to support people coming together around a great idea and a great venture is great. If there's any way I can help with that, I would be very happy to do that.
Your offer is noted and appreciated. Thank you.
Councillor Boddy and then Councillor Lemon.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Dr. Totten and Mr. Alexander. We politicians apparently aren't supposed to be short of words, and the other thing we're not ever comfortable about is eating crow. And when we made our decision, it was pretty clear from the community that they didn't like our decision. And in the last couple of months, some of us have learned to like the taste of crow. I can't tell you how happy we are that you're here taking the heat off of us after the decision that we made, to be quite frank. I don't think that you people were treated fairly along the way. A lot of members of the community were very upset, and I don't think they looked at all the hard work you've done over the last number of years, how much you guys care about the museum. In dipping into your own pockets a few months ago to buy a specific bishop piece, your pockets, not the community's pocket, your individual pockets, to buy a bishop piece of memorabilia was pretty impressive, and behalf of all of us, we thank you for that. I'm quite sure that anyone that wants to keep this museum open will agree with you. I'm pretty confident that Mr. Thomas is sitting over there, who has obviously great communication skills, getting 350 people out to a meeting, getting support, volunteers, getting money. He can do that, and his group can do that. They've got a great talent that maybe you guys don't have. And it'll be wonderful if he would get involved, they'd get involved, and support you on this, and you work together, because you've obviously got skills to operate a gallery or operate a museum that you've been doing for years that they don't have. This is an absolutely great result. I pray that it works, and thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Boddy, for those kind words. We realized too, and it was brought home to us by Richard in the last meeting too, the delegation that came forward, that the times have changed, and we weren't ostriches with our heads stuck in the sand, but we see this community outpouring, so we thought it was time for us to change too, our decision.
Councillor Lemon.
Well, I'm really, really interested in this presentation. I'm aware of what was discussed. I was not at the meeting, but I'm aware of what was discussed. And as far as I know, I know there's been no discussion with our board. The Community Waterfront Center. I think we have a meeting tomorrow night, and I think we have to move ahead. I think maybe we may have to adjust structure in some form to make this a workable arrangement. But I think something positive should come out of this. I'm very pleased that you came forward with your suggestion. It really leaves everybody sort of like with their eyes pasted open almost, because this was not expected. This was certainly not expected. But I think there is a way to do it. We just have to look at structure. We have to look at the way we're doing things, both of us, to come to something that's going to serve the best interests of this community and the heritage of our community. Because that's what it's all about. The reason so many people came forward was not the eloquence of anyone, except it was the eloquence of heritage and how it speaks loudly. And I think tomorrow night we're going to have a certainly very interesting meeting, and I expect there's going to have to be negotiations as per. And there is a way to make this workable for both groups. I have felt that the marine rail is important, and I think Billy Bishop's important. As a matter of fact, my pedigree on Billy Bishop goes back to any of your existing board members, back to the days of A.J. Bauer, when I was volunteered somehow, without my knowledge, but anyway, he did a good job. And he laid a framework that has moved forward very well with Billy Bishop. But there are opportunities with the marine rail that we've uncovered, and we certainly want to sit down and talk to you. I do have one question. How is your board elected? It's one question I've never been able to find out the answer to.
In a democratic, fair, and open way, sir.
Yeah, but
It's a volunteer board.
yeah, but I mean, you have an annual meeting, and who can vote at the annual meeting to elect directors? I'm just curious. I'd like to know the structure.
Councillor Lemon, it is a volunteer board. I can direct this question to the clerk for a more fulsome report to come back.
Well, I think it's a fair question. That I just wondered, is it in other words, can people run for the board from the community?
It's a volunteer board, Councillor Lemon, and volunteers step up to the plate put their name forward to serve their community, as these folks have, and the Friends of the Marine Rail Museum also did. And leaders traditionally bring groups together. And I think that it's important that we recognize the leadership that a lot of people have shown in the community to come together and to reverse what was a very difficult decision for yourselves and your board. And I recall that meeting back in October when we were meeting up at the county building, and it was I could tell it was a very difficult decision that your board made. And I believe this was equally as difficult. And I thank you for coming here and sharing this very good news with us
I
tonight.
had one other question.
Closing comment.
Not a comment, a question.
Go ahead.
And so the museum will continue open as planned right through to the end of the year and then beyond, correct?
As the presentation has indicated, sir.
Yes, good. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. That was all. Because I heard you were closing on weekends or something.
Very clear.
Anything else, Councillor Lemon? No? Okay. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. And I too was surprised by your presentation, and I had thought of several comments to say, and a lot of them have been said, but through this whole discussion, clearly there was an outpouring from the community to step up and save the museum. And a lot of good volunteers have come forward. You know, Richard Thomas and Mr. Robbins and Ms. Kelly and many, many others have come forward to offer their support, and as has been said, their money and their volunteer efforts. But to me, and Councillor Boddy touched on this, and I agree, through the whole discussion, the board that had been in place for many years and had done all the work for many years sort of got unfairly treated, I would say, and I think by everyone, including this council. I take my responsibility for that too, my share of the responsibility. And I think we can't forget that your board, you members, have been there through thick and thin for, well, I don't even want to say how long some of you have been there, but a long time doing the work. And you need to be commended for that. You need to be commended publicly for that. And, you know, people, well, the whole board, I see a number of them in the audience tonight, and they've all been there and done that. And they deserve to be congratulated. And the staff involved, Ms. Eichhorn, has provided some great leadership throughout. So I'm quite pleased to see to hear your presentation tonight. I think we can find a way that this will work moving forward with all of the community support that has been presented. I suppose the only question that's been sort of raised by Councillor Wright and Adair was the RFP question, and you touched on it briefly in your presentation of that you would be putting in an RFP, and this is just a comment, a discussion point, the only reason I could see moving forward with that is part of that process was to look for partnerships, if there was other partnerships that could be out there that work together with the museum board, be it, you know, there's been lots of discussion around coffee shops and this type of idea. So I just throw that out there. I don't know if it's appropriate to stop the RFP process now. Perhaps it is, but perhaps it might be worthwhile to see what's out there. This group of volunteers is going to work with all the volunteers moving forward, and anyway, I just put that out there. But again, I want to commend, I don't think it hasn't been said enough, and it can't be said enough, how much work you people have done over the years to keep this important part of our heritage intact and for the public to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McMahon. Thank you.
I'll go to the city manager and then Councillor Wright.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. In regard to the RFP process that's been brought up by a number of councillors this evening, one option is to let it run. As you are aware, Council, you do not have any obligation to accept any of the submissions. So that is an option for you, or you could certainly, perhaps rather than make a decision this evening, ask for a report back. That's a second option as well for your consideration.
Okay, Councillor Wright.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. You know, I'm not quite as speechless as I was at the very beginning. So I do have a couple of things I want to say. First of all, I think we owe a great debt of thanks to the committee that formed itself to save our museum. the Richard Thomas and Jeff Robbins and Ann Kelly and those people that worked really, really hard to bring the people together. And second, in hindsight, I think we all learned a lesson, and that lesson to me was, if you have to make a decision, you need to get the public involved in that decision. And I can't help thinking, if we'd have had that meeting that was held at the Legion before the decision was made, we might have made a different decision about closing it. So, perhaps that's a lesson we've all learned now, is that you need to have a public meeting if you're going to make such a serious decision, like closing down one of our cultural resources. And that's a mistake that perhaps we made as council, and perhaps the board made, but that meeting should have been held before we made it. But in retrospect, hindsight's always great. I still want to say thanks. I'm so gall-darn happy that this museum is staying open. Thank you. And I do know that you people will all work together. I know that that'll be in your heart, that you will want to make this work now.
Thank you. Councillor Chamberlain and Councillor Doyle.
Yes, I just want to congratulate everybody that's got us to this point. I think the thing that was positive out of what happened was that we all started to look at the museum with different eyes. And we all have lots of ideas about how we can make it better, bigger, better, wonderful. It's wonderful already. I was just on a trip in Prince Edward Island. I visited 7 museums. Ours was still the best of everyone I saw. And they were all cultural and heritage award winners. So Owen Sound, we have a lot of wonderful things happening at our museum, and I'd like to be part of making it go forward. And I really thank you for stepping up and telling us what you did tonight. It was a surprise and a really nice one. Thank you.
Councillor Twaddle.
Thank you, Your Worship. It was the museum board that made the decision to close the museum, and at the meeting in October, and it was obviously a difficult decision at the time. Council supported that decision for what at the time were obvious reasons. If we made one mistake, and I believe we did make a mistake at the time as a council, and I'll take as much responsibility for that as anyone, was in the messaging around the decision to close the museum. And it became perceived in the community that it wasn't just closing the museum, it was the city turning its back on the marine and rail heritage that is so important in the community. The good news is, I mean, that really wasn't the case, but we didn't do the job of communicating a commitment to marine and rail heritage and recognizing it in some fashion. That was the bad news. The good news was that message certainly rallied the community. There's an old saying, every cloud has a silver lining, and I think we're seeing tonight that that the community has rallied, not to oppose the city's decision, it wasn't the city's decision, but has rallied to make sure that everybody understands how important marine and rail heritage is in this community. That's a message that we allowed to be lost. And as Councillor Boddy is saying, eat some crow, I'll take as much responsibility as anybody for not making our position clear. And I certainly appreciate the work that everybody has done, the volunteers who came forward, and the museum board to take the community initiative, to understand where the community's heart really is, and to reconsider their decisions and to make something work. I congratulate you for taking that initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from Councillor Adair?
It's more of a procedural motion, because that's what I like to do. We, in the past, have approved the actions of the Owen Sound Owen Sound's Museum Board to vacate the premises that we own, and I think, given tonight, that we should probably approve in principle the actions of the Owen Sound Museum Board to keep the museum open in our facility. And that would be...
We
that
still
would be
have
my
your
motion.
motion
Oh, yeah,
from
I have
earlier
two.
on
Oh,
the
I'm
table, so
piling
we
them
can
up.
vote
Sorry,
on
Your
that
Worship.
first.
Sure.
And then,
Then I would have a subsequent motion.
okay. The detailed motion, Councillor Lemon.
First of all, Your Worship, can you read back the actual motion that's there?
Sure.
The council discussed during budget deliberations a matching fund formula for public support funds towards the Marine and Rail Museum.
And of course, I would want a staff report to come along.
Yeah, actually, I think that was included in your original motion. I think that's a very, very good thing, and at the same time as that's going on, there's going to have to be some negotiations between the museum board. And one thing I'd like to clarify, at no time, to my knowledge, did anybody around this table or any members of the Friends of the Marine Railway Museum, or latterly the Canadian Water, or the Community Waterfront Center, ever criticize what had been done by the museum board. One of the reasons why there were 400 or whatever number of people at the public meeting and 3,000 plus on the petition was in part due to the fact of what had gone on at the museum over many, many years. And that pays tribute to the board. But I, as you know, are aware, I am a member of the Community Waterfront Center Board. And as of 5:30 tonight, there had been no traffic from anyone on the board about any meeting. And so there's going to have to be meetings and see how we can work this to everybody's advantage, and certainly to the heritage and cultural values of Owen Sound. But I was wrong too. I also voted to accept the closure of the museum. I did not realize the community support. And the one message that to me is abundantly clear in this, before council ever makes this kind of decision in the future, we should really have a public meeting. Because there was never a public meeting on the closure of the museum. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I think back of when the efforts were going to be made to tear down the old bandstand on First Avenue West some time ago. Again, there was public support to retain it. So heritage is highly valued in this community by the citizens. And we as a council have to listen, and the best way to listen is to get the public to come forward. So we'll move ahead, and I think everything can be very positive for heritage in our community.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Alexander. Dr. Totten, we appreciate you coming here this evening. Unless you have anything else you'd like to present to council this evening, feel free to take your seats, and we'll be voting on the motion in front of council.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and
Thank
thanks for your patience and your ears. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Everyone clear on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillor Dare.
Subsequent motion then is that the city approve in principle the actions of the Owen Sound Museums Board in keeping the Marine Rail Museum open. Because we have approved in principle their closing of the Marine Rail Museum, and I think we need to, in light of the new revelations tonight, approve this. I'm certainly in favor of keeping it open if they're going to keep it open.
There you go. Councillor Purdon.
Just speaking to the motion, I wonder about the timing of it right now, whether it wouldn't be good to give both of the groups some time to come together with some plans. I think the intent is there and it will happen, but what support can we as a council offer the museum board and the community group that came together to bring us to where we are, to kind of consolidate the interest in the community. So I just wonder about the timing of the motion.
Councillor Dare.
Well, I guess my timing is that we've just had some pretty brand new news, and I think that we should approve what they've done in principle. I mean, if we're in favor of keeping the museum open, and the group that's been running the museum comes forward and says, you know, the public has come forward and they said, we're going to keep the museum open, I think since we just a few, I think it was last October that we had a presentation saying, well, we're going to close it, and council approved that night. We didn't wait. I think we should do it. It's approval in principle to keep to do what the whole community has said we want to have happen.
Back to Councillor Purdon and then Councillor Lemon.
I think that's why I'm wondering about the timing, because we did just jump on the first recommendation to close the museum. We didn't leave that time. We didn't go out to the community. We didn't, as a council, look at this issue. We just took the word from the museum board, and I think the discussion here was that it would have been good to have given that some second thought. And I'm not in any way implying that the museum board, it's not wonderful news that this is where we are. I just wonder whether having an opportunity for a bit of time for that to consolidate would be a good idea. That's
Councillor Lemon.
Well, part of the ability for the museum to continue on, the Marine Rail, the existing board to continue on, is predicated on the two groups coming together. The two groups have not talked about this proposal at all, and I think that it is premature. I want the museum to stay open, period. Excuse me, Councillor, I have the floor procedurally. And at this time, I would like to see the two groups enter into discussions as the first stage, because that has not happened. What was announced here tonight, I think, was news, good news, I think, but I also think that it was predicated on the certain actions by the Community Waterfront Committee, and that has not been before their board, and with all due deference to them, I think that the motion now, and I would move to table for 2 weeks pending a report from both groups on the coming together.
Okay, to the motion to table. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is defeated. Back to the original motion. Councillor Adair.
The motion is to approve in principle, Your Worship.
Thank you. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. I think this is very exciting. I think this is very positive, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity for everyone that's involved in heritage. I see a lot of very familiar faces here, and I have to say congratulations to all of you, because you're all doing something tremendous for this community, and that's preserving our heritage. So thank you. And you may stay for the rest of the meeting, or you may leave. Thank you very much, and good luck. We have one more deputation for this evening. The CEO of the library has been deferred to a future meeting, but I will invite Leah Wanch, the festival administrator for the Festival of Northern Lights, to bring us a presentation with regards to the festival's website and the recruitment efforts for new festival members. And there's a bright light from the festival. Mr. Doug McKee. And welcome, Leah.
I'm just here because this is Leah's first chance to address this august body, and I want to give her all the support that I possibly can, and then I will talk to you a little bit. But the magic number for tonight is 53.
53.
53 nights, and the festival will be beginning.
Thank you, Doug. Good evening, Your Worship.
Good evening.
Councillors, city staff. Thank you very much for this opportunity to come to speak with you tonight about the festival's updated image in the way of our new website. If I could just get some assistance with pulling the website up on the projector, I'll be happy to take you on a brief tour of the website itself. Perfect, thank you. So basically, what we have done with the website is we worked with the gentleman from HaveOne.com to do a complete redesign of the website. Not sure how many of you have seen the previous website, but it was actually quite dark and certainly not the happy and festive image that we'd like to portray to our spectators. So as you can see, simply from the homepage, we've actually lightened things up quite a bit with the background. We felt that it was quite festive. We've also added a more colorful logo, which has actually been used on all of our advertising for this year. So I'm just going to take you on a very brief tour, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. So the homepage here provides a simple slideshow for anyone that wants to have a bit of a look through some of the displays. And there's also a message from Doug McKee, our chair, as well as your worship. And we will be updating these very soon with some new material as well. You can also click on the pictures from the bottom of the homepage as well. Next is our visitor page. This contains some information on what visitors can expect when they come to the festival, as well as a bit of some travel information and things like that. And as I'm sure you are all aware, we do host guided tours throughout the festival, so there's also some information for tour operators to access there as well. Next is our events page. And we're actually quite excited to announce that we've been approved for some funding through Ontario Tourism, and we will be updating this site very soon with a ticket to entertainment contest that we will be hosting in partnership with CTV. So that will be uploaded on here as well. But for visitors to the site, there's actually an events calendar that you can click on. And I myself will be responsible for updating this on an ongoing basis. But you can see that all the information of all the events taking place in the area will be uploaded onto this events calendar. This page will also host our winter guide, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with. Once that is completed, it will be loaded up here in PDF format so that visitors to the site are more than welcome to print it off, any information they might wish to maintain so that they're able to come to the area. One of the most exciting features, I think, of this new site is, as you'll see here, we've been able to upload 3 YouTube videos which feature the festival itself. They are excellent videos, one done by Owen Sound Tourism, and then also one by Canoe, which I actually invite you all to see if you've not seen it before. It's actually very excellent.
Can we watch it now? It's only 2 minutes long.
Certainly, if you'd like to have a look.
It is quite something if you haven't seen it.
Chris here, and we are about to go paddling up the Sydenham River on a beautiful snowy night. We've got the crew, we've got the boats,
and you got me.
We've got Kate with her flashy hat on, and we're gonna go all the way up there.
That's a bassoon. Thank you. That was a good 2 minutes, wasn't it?
Yes, it was very, very enjoyable, so we felt it was
Thank
very
you.
important to have that on the site as well. Some of the other information that we've included on the sites, for those who are looking to become more involved in the festival, there's information regarding the board of directors as well as all of the subcommittees and who to contact with regards to joining those committees. Another excellent feature that we've added is a photo gallery. You'll see that many of the images are very similar to the ones in the initial slideshow, and you can also view these photos as a slideshow as well. And I'll just quickly show how that is possible. It increases the size of the image, and you're able to click through each of the images. We are really hoping to actually get some updated images of the displays this year, which will be added to the site when they are available. And we also have added forms to the site for anyone who wants to become involved, whether that be on a volunteer basis, as a sponsor, or even if they're an organization who has an upcoming event and they would like it posted on our events calendar, there's a form for them to do that as well. The form is forwarded to myself and I will update the site as needed. Another interesting feature, which I think is a very coming of age feature for the site, is this blog page. I have been, over the last few weeks, just updating it as we get closer and closer to the festival. You'll see that I've actually just updated one today to advise anyone visiting the site that we are now officially less than 2 months to the opening night of the festival. And last but certainly not least is the contact information. The contact information directs any inquiries to our City Hall address here and the email, as well as the contact information for Owen Sound Tourism as well. Another important feature that we thought was very important given the area that the festival is in is the weather widget that you'll see along the side. Of course, we don't want people coming to the area if they can't see 5 feet in front of their vehicle. So that'll keep intended visitors up to date on the weather. As well, up here in the corner, you will see the links to both of our social media websites as well. They connect directly to our pages and they will allow people to keep up to date on what is happening. And I think that pretty much concludes everything I have to say about the site. So I'm actually going to turn the podium over now to Doug, who's going to talk a little bit more about our attempts to recruit some new volunteers.
Thank you.
We like to keep you abreast of what's happening. So today we moved the kiosk out of the barn up at the cemetery, and it is now on site. The one problem we had with that last year was that the window was too small and we couldn't tell when cars were coming into the park. So we've had a former student from Georgian College replace that window with one that's about 75% larger so that we can now see a little better. But the kiosk is in place. On the 15th of October, it's the day after Thanksgiving, the volunteers will be out along the river and the festival will start to be put into place. We have a really, really great group of volunteers. Some of the fellows that work up at the barn put in over 2,000 hours a year. That's a full-time job. If you want to take a 40-hour work week and multiply it by 50 weeks, but they put in over 2,000 hours volunteer. And these are not young fellows like me. And I'm 71. These are our seniors. And we need to support them. The community has supported us in every possible way except replenishing our seniors. We put out a brochure and we distributed it at the market. We've put it in the senior centers around the city, and I'm even thinking about going up to McDonald's and to the Boot and Blade and putting it under windshield wipers early in the morning to get some more volunteers out. But we really would appreciate it if people would consider. They don't have to be lumberjacks. They don't have to be weightlifters. They just have to be people who want to help the community, who want to have a good time, because I guarantee you we have a lot of fun out on the river. So anyone who is interested, give Leah a call, 376-4440, extension 1225, and we'll get in touch with you and we'll get you working for us. And When those lights go on, there's something that happens inside that you can't get anywhere else. And we'd love to share that with as many people as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the Georgian College students are thinking, there's another thing I can do.
I should
In
mention,
your home, away from home.
I've already spoken to
I'm
some
sure
of them.
you have.
But Georgian College Police Foundation students
Yeah,
have
they're
done
great.
our security for the last, I believe it's 4 years, and they've done a marvelous job.
Excellent.
We've had one case of vandalism in the last 4 years.
That's
And
tremendous.
it's because of these guys. And they know how to volunteer, so let's get some of our other people from Owen Sound to volunteer too.
Very high caliber students, yes. Councillor Chamberlain?
Yes, well, I was going to mention that the Police Foundation's people are here, and I know they do the security, and I thought that was really neat. I'm glad you brought that up. The other thing is, I noticed that you now have an 855 number. Is that like the same as an 888 or something? Which is for long distance.
It's long
And
distance,
that's
toll-free.
And that's a new initiative, isn't it? We haven't.
We had it last year, but we're really pushing it this year. The other thing I didn't mention was part of the grant that we got will result in television advertising in the Kitchener area
Oh, good.
and in the Barrie area, and newspaper advertising in the Orangeville area.
Great.
So we're trying to get the people to come. Let's make sure we've got a good show for them.
Well, I think we do have a very good show. Thank you.
Councillor Twaddle, then Councillor Lemon.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. McKee, just when you're recruiting volunteers, different potential volunteers have different interests. You have a full range of opportunities from a couple of hours, a couple of hours a week over 2 or 3 weeks, helping at the kiosk, to daily or once a week, pretty near year-round, to work on rehabilitating and painting and repairing displays, to crews who do the setup. So you've got a full range of volunteer opportunities, and there's a need for an incredible number of skills, including around marketing. So it's not always just hard physical labor as well.
Oh, no, no. One of the things that we're really in need of now is someone who's good at working with wood. We have a display of the old City Hall, which is in need of some repairs, as this City Hall was. And we need someone who has some woodworking skills. We've got a lot of tools up there. We've got a lot of people who will help, but we don't have someone that has that woodworking ability to rehabilitate City Hall.
Well, I bet after tonight you will. Councillor Lemon.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to touch the Rehabilitate City Hall line, but I want to say that website is just fantastic. The only difference I might make was to flip the video we saw to the top one, because if you want, I've never, until I saw that video some time ago, I guess it's 2 years ago or a year ago, whatever, I never saw the Festival of Northern Lights from the water. And it looks good on land, but it's really special going up the Sydenham. I mean, that is, and the music, that was, the person responsible for that video did what I consider a championship job. And getting that out in the modern videos, and so people can bring it up on their iPads, iPhones, and everything, other initials under the universe, I think it's wonderful, because you're going to reach people that you didn't reach before. And if somebody has a family, or doesn't have a family, whatever, a person sees some of that video footage that's there, that's going to be a real motivator to come to Owen Sound. I'm glad you have the weather there, but could we make sure it always looks good?
We'll have to talk to the weatherman.
Okay, but congratulations, and I certainly hope more people come forward. Having been involved with the festival, I realize that some of the volunteers are not young, but they work with a lot of young enthusiasm, is what they do. And the other thing that Councillor Twaddle mentioned is the various functions within the festival. There is 1,000 different jobs that need to be done, and everybody can find a niche. If you're not into this, you might be into that. If somebody's out there, as you said, right now you need somebody who's a carpenter or a cabinet maker. And hopefully you'll get both, so you'll have two, and that way you can refurbish this building as well as your miniature city hall.
Thank you very much, and thank you. We're looking forward to another great festival.
53 days.
And counting.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you. We do not have any more deputations. However, we do have public question period. Is there any member of the public here this evening who would like to ask a question of council? Seeing none, we have 3 pieces of correspondence for which direction of council is required. The first item is a letter from Mayor Gord McKay from the town of Midland. This is a letter that Mayor McKay has put together on behalf of the mayor's group of Georgian Bay communities to the Honorable Denis Labelle, the Minister of Infrastructure and Intergovernmental Affairs. Councillor Lemon.
Yes, Your Worship, I would move that we endorse this letter and put our support on the line for this. To make sure that adequate funding comes to municipalities who are being adversely impacted with the people within their municipality, so that it's not, we're not paying the price for decisions that we had no part in.
Thank you. Further discussion to the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. We have a letter from the President of the Southwest Economic Alliance with regards to support for resolution on a 5-point action plan to improve passenger service in southwestern Ontario. The thrust of this seems to be via rail cuts, but Council's well aware that this would extend also to bus transportation. Councillor Boddy.
I'll support adopting. I do have my concerns that we're the guy on the end of the whiplash here, way up in the hinterland, that putting our attention into Southwest Economic Alliance is going to be really wonderful for London and for all those places down there that want via rail, and we're just going to be a forgotten out here in the hinterland once again. However, if they're serious about looking into busing as well as via rail, this is all about via rail, so it's hard to get too excited, but I would hope that you'll be pressing them on busing, and that the via rail doesn't come to Owen Sound. So it's really hard to get excited about it, but I'll move their request in the letter.
Thank you. Certainly, VIA also operates buses, and I think in order to stay in the game, you need to keep your voice at the table. So I think it's important that we support this moving forward myself. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have another letter. This is from the County of Grey with regards to the draft bylaw known as the smoke-free outdoor spaces. Councillor Twaddle.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm really glad to see this initiative back on the table. The county backed away from it a year or so ago, and this council had endorsed this originally, and we passed a resolution encouraging the council, Grey County Council, to reconsider their decision. I am, however, more than a little bit confused by the letter. It's a draft bylaw which they're asking municipalities to approve. And if enough municipalities representing enough population approve the bylaw, then it will be presented to County Council. The last time around, a bylaw was circulated to the municipalities for comment and review before a bylaw was submitted for approval. So I find that a staff-prepared bylaw that has not, from what this letter says, and I stand to be corrected, has not been to county council for consideration, has been sent out to municipalities and asked them to approve it, without any opportunity for there to be a review and some kind of process to come back and say, well, we can support this, we can't support that, we think this should be considered. That may be the intention, but it's certainly not contained in this letter. There also is no deadline or respond by date in this letter. So I think that these are a couple of things that need to be clarified. But also, I think as was done the last time, we would want an opportunity to review this, and the last time it was sent to the Rec and Parks Committee for review, perhaps ultimately to bylaw as well, but because I think this is an open spaces issue and most of the open space in the city comes under Rec and Parks, I think that's where it should go. So pending clarification of the process and the timing, I would move that this draft bylaw be referred to the Recreation and Parks Advisory Committee for review, and then a recommendation back to this council and potentially comments to county council. But I would also include in that motion a request that staff clarify the process and the timing for this to go forward from the county.
Okay. Councillor Wright, and then I'll go to the Director of Community Services.
Thank you. I don't think this is very well explained. Originally, this we did, when the city sent a letter saying they approved what we did, we tried to get a bylaw through the county and it did not go. It was defeated. Now we want to bring it back, and in order to bring it back, we have to have a 2/3 majority to get it back to the table. So this is what we're asking for. We're asking for a motion from this council so that we can go back to county with and say, okay, we have 2/3 of a majority, now let's discuss the bylaw. That's what we're asking for. We can't discuss it, we can't bring it to the county table unless we have 2/3 majority. The letter doesn't really explain that, but it just says, a motion was passed at July 8th directing staff to prepare the bylaw to determine if a triple majority is achieved. We need that. Triple majority. We need that before we can discuss the bylaw. We've certainly had lots of discussion about this up at county, both at the committee level and at the county level. We've had the Dr. Lynn there talking to us about it, and but there's still concern over some of the issues. And so in order to get it back to the table, we need this triple majority, and that's what we're asking for us to go back again and say, yes, we support it. You have our vote, so let's discuss it at the county table.
Go to the Director of Community Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. Certainly, this matter of smoke-free recreation has been referred in the past through our Rec and Parks Advisory Committee, and I think through council there were comments made to the county regarding a draft bylaw. In fact, staff, as well as the chair, I think, of Parks and Rec, met with the health unit to discuss some of our thoughts around the draft bylaw. They were things like, how do we deal with campgrounds? And I see that that's been addressed, but what about other things like special events, very large parks like Harrison Park, our trail network, restaurants within parks, things like cost of signs. So I think I hear from Councillor Wright that what you're looking for is some sort of approval to revisit the bylaw with an opportunity in the future to have some thoughtful discussion around the contents of the actual bylaw. And I certainly think it would be helpful to have that through Rec and Parks Committee with a recommendation to this council.
Okay. Councillor McManaman, thank you.
Thank you, Worship, and that clarification has been helpful. I think this council has at least twice, and I'm going to guess 3 times, will support this going back and having a look at it. This particular bylaw, as Councillor Twaddle has pointed out, there may be a few particulars we'd like to comment on. As has been said, they did discuss campgrounds, but there's several other issues the city brought up that they don't discuss in this bylaw. So I think the principle of having a smoke-free recreation, having smoke-free recreation areas, we agree with. This particular bylaw, we may not, some of the wording. So I don't know how we get there other than refer the matter to Parks and Rec. We can more or less repeat the comments that we've said in the past and bring those forward, but yeah, those are my comments. A motion that we support in principle, I don't know if that meets the needs of the letter here or not, but I would support the motion to refer this to Parks and Rec.
Councillor Purdon.
Yeah, I think I'm just trying to get some clarity here. I think there's nothing here that we don't agree with in principle. It's the devil's in the detail, but I don't understand with Councillor Wright whether the detail would be discussed again or not. So maybe you could answer that question for me.
Well, quite frankly, I think it's wise to send it back to REC for their comments, so that when we do go back to county with a resolution that our city does support it, we can at least speak to any changes that we want made. So I certainly would appreciate it going to the REC committee and then coming back with any information.
But if that's the case, I certainly would support that.
I would support the motion that it go to REC, yes.
Sure. Councillor Lemon and then Councillor Twaddle.
Yeah, I think going to REC because they made some sense out of this. One of the things that's in here where it says no smoking within 9 meters of a municipally owned or operated building. Well, a car driving down 8th Street going past the market building is going to be less than 27 feet. How do you enforce that?
There's a highway section in there.
There is, but this isn't alluding to that, that's what I'm saying. And I'd like more detail before we vote on the final thing, and I think going to Parks and Rec is a good idea.
There we go. Councillor Twaddle.
Thank you. I appreciate Councillor Wright's explanation of what's going on, but I still think we need to seek formal clarification in writing from the county, because this letter from Heather Morrison, the deputy clerk, says, in order for this draft bylaw to be approved, it must be approved by resolution by a majority of the lower tier councils within Grey County who represent a majority of the ratepayers of Grey County. If the two majorities noted above are achieved, the bylaw will be presented to Grey County Council for consideration. So this is where the confusion comes in, is what is the intent of County Council? And because County Council is going to get to consider it, but strictly by the wording in this letter, we either approve it as it is or disapprove it, and that will determine how it goes forward. You're indicating that's not the intention, but that's what we have in front of us, and this is now a formal document entered in the record for Council's consideration. So I think it's important that we still get an appropriate clarification in writing of the process.
Councillor Wright.
Yes, and as I said earlier, I don't think the letter's well written to explain what county was considering. So I don't have a problem with that, because I know what council means, but it doesn't really say that in the letter.
Yes. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Everybody's clear on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have a series of reports, and our first is the consent agenda. We have a number of reports, and we have a number of new business license applications to approve. Certainly a positive sign. It's council's direction on the consent agenda. Some minutes from the Nonprofit Housing Corporation. Councillor Lemon.
Well, I'd be pleased to move the consent agenda, but I have one question. Some time ago, a resolution of this council was passed asking to not put on the agenda things that are not necessary for the city to comment on. What's the status on that? Is it in the final report yet? Don't remember it.
Through you, Your Worship, that matter was referred for the details to be worked out through our Community Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee. We've been short a community planner since late in July. The priority of the staff in that division has been to process development and building permits rather than work on that policy. So certainly it's on our work plan, and we hope to finish that before the end of the year, hopefully later this fall.
Okay, thank you. So I would so move the consent agenda.
Thank you. Councillor Purdon.
I had a question about the report about the BCK property. There's a report that basically suggests that maybe there could be some different approaches taken to have that site cleaned up. There was quite a lot of talk about how bad it looks and the fence and the need to fix it up. But I don't see a recommendation that would compel action with this report. Am I just missing that? Because the suggestion was, I think, to, instead of fencing the whole property, just fence the holes, which would mean you could get rid of the fence that's falling down and clean up the property. But who would actually tell the owner to do that? Do we tell the owner to do that? Because I think that the idea was to try and get some action on that property.
We'll go to the Director of Community Services and we'll have a detailed response, I'm sure.
Thank you, Your Worship. In preparing the report, we sort of looked at the carrot and the stick, and the stick part of the equation is the property standards bylaw, and you'll see there kind of a section that was provided to us by the bylaw staff. And I certainly understand they visited the property. They tell us that several minor property standards violations were noted. Appropriately, they haven't provided those for the public report this evening, but I would certainly expect that those are being pursued and followed up through that department. In terms of the fencing, there are certain hazards on the property. The fencing is certainly one of the issues I would think that's been noted in their site visit. And you'll see in the comments from the property standards or the bylaw officer that there are kind of two approaches to the fencing. One would be to fence the whole site and keep that in good repair. The other would be to kind of fence the hazards as they're identified on the property, and that would take some work to be able to be sure that we've identified the hazards and appropriately fenced them. So that action will be happening through the bylaw department.
Thanks very much for that. Councillor Purdon, did you have further comment?
I think it was just that there was an expectation there would be follow-up, and as long as that the bylaw department is looking after that, I'm happy.
Any further discussion on any of the items within the consent agenda? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We are looking at reports. We have a first report from the Supervisor of Human Resources. This is with regards to the compensation for non-union employees. What's his council's direction? Councillor Lemon.
I would move the recommendation. This is certainly consistent with the inside contract, and so I would move the 0.25%, which would bring their total increase for the year to 1.25, I believe, and I think that is quite reasonable.
Okay. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have a report from the Deputy Clerk. This is with regards to the 2014 Council calendar. Councillor Purdon.
I would move that we accept the 2014 Council meeting calendar as provided.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have a report from the engineering, or from the purchasing agent with regards to the engineering design services for 12th Street East, 3rd Avenue East to 4th Avenue East reconstruction. Councillor Wright.
Thank you very much. I will move the recommendation, and this is for the, as you had mentioned, the design services for 12th Street East between 3rd and 4th Avenue East, and this is awarded to Gamesby and Manor Row for a total of $8,181. But I have a question now when I'm removing it. It seems to me, if I could, through you, Your Worship,
Yes.
there's quite a disparity between Gamesby and Manor Row and the other three that are there. And I just, is there an answer to why there is such a large gap in the different prices?
Through your worship, certainly one of the things that we did look into when we looked at and reviewed the proposal, but we are quite comfortable looking at the proposal and the scope of work defined within the RFP that Gamesby Manor will meet the requirements of the RFP at that price.
More power to us if we can get it done cheaper. That's great anyway. I've moved the recommendation.
Okay, discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. We have a report from the Director of Community Services. This is with regards to the community planner that we are in need of. Job description and salary grid. Councillor Chamberlain.
I'll move that we receive the report,
Approve the recommendation.
and including the recommendation, yes.
Receive and approve the recommendation. Yeah,
Yes.
it's like the double stamp. All those, Councillor Body. Yes.
Don't know if we need an explanation. We've been, everyone's probably noticed that we have been through a couple of planners in the last couple of years and have been without one. Anytime you're trying to hire a professional to come to a small town, you can't be a little short on nickels and dimes or they're not coming. This is a very important job, obviously, community planner. With the planning that we've seen and growth that we've seen and developments that are going on, it's important to have a quality community planner and to have them as a manager position. This is an important step that we need to take.
You know, I do think it's important that you make those comments. In fact, it is one of those things that Owen Sound, like most municipalities in Ontario, are really finding that the availability of professionally trained staff is getting very difficult. It's as they say, it's a very tight job market. But I can tell you that the person who steps up to the plate and chooses to live in Owen Sound and live out their portion or all of their professional career will not only find it rewarding, but it will be exciting, and it will be different every day. And we will never be dull, because if we are not anything, we are not dull. So I can say that I wish the Planning Division all the best in this recruitment, and look forward to meeting a new planner soon. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. I think that was a little pent-up energy that I had left over maybe from the weekend. We have an application for, yet again, more development in Owen Sound. Site plan approval for Georgian Shores Marina. Go to the Director of Community Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. At this time, we would request that Council defer this item, 12B5, due to new information that was received late last week.
We can do that. Councillor Twaddle.
So I would move that this item be deferred.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have a report from the acting community planner. This is an application for yet again another construction of a school expansion, and this is the Saint-Dominique Savio School. Councillor Purdon.
I would move the recommendation for site plan approval for the expansion of Saint-Dominique Savio School. It's a wonderful school. I was just up there on your behalf, and it's great news that they're expanding French school opportunities for children.
So if there's a planner available that is French-speaking and would like their children to be educated in solely the French language, that opportunity is in Owen Sound as well. Councillor Wright.
I think Councillor McManaman had his hand up first.
Councillor McMahon.
Thank you, Worship. Question for the director. Would all the portables on site then be removed? I can't find that in the, is that your understanding?
There will be one freestanding building that's sort of located in the west parking area. It would be newly constructed as part of this project, but we understand the other portables would be removed.
And do schools, just a further question, do schools, when they put in portables, do we have to give approval of that?
We normally do. We would issue a building permit and often do site plan approval for those portables.
Thank you.
Further, Councillor Wright.
Yes, I actually was just going to ask if the community planner could just run through it a little bit so that the public had an opportunity to know what was happening, because this is again something that's exciting for the city.
Certainly through you, Your Worship, perhaps if the clerk could go to the site plan on the screen. We have an application from Architectura on behalf of St. Dominic Savio for a 1,073 square meter, or just over 11,000 square foot addition to the north or the rear part of the existing school, as well as a freestanding building kind of in the area that's gray in the parking lot, and an expansion of the parking area. It was submitted with a number of supporting documents: the site plan, exterior elevation, revised stormwater management plan. The property is designated institutional and zoned institutional. The site plan complies with those uses. The parking complies in terms of numbers. They exceed the number of accessible parking spaces that they're required to provide. There's no change in the existing entrances, and the sidewalks and pedestrian areas function very well on the site, as does bus parking. The site plan at this point hasn't been reviewed by our Accessibility Advisory Committee, but you'll see that the conditions recommended of approval provide for any comments or input from that committee to be included as part of the approval. The lighting is shown in the parking area. There's room for exterior solid waste storage. The project has been reviewed by our operations department, and they've recommended approval with certain conditions, but certainly an approved grading plan has already, and stormwater has been provided. So recommend approval, Your Worship.
Thank you. 11,000 square feet, that's a significant size of an addition for a school. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We have a report from the events facilitator. This is with regards to accessible parking for downtown events. I have to say, this is another excellent example of staff being incredibly creative in coming up with a solution or a challenge that council has put out there. So, Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the recommendation that we direct staff to amend the traffic bylaw. We are looking at amending that entire bylaw. Ideally, you would do things all at once, but I think this issue has been around for quite some time now, at least a year or more, and it's been through the Accessibility Committee, and I think that we should just make the amendment and not wait till we do the whole thing. I think this is certainly important enough to do now.
Okay. Councillor Lemon.
Speaking for the motion, I agree we shouldn't wait, particularly because we've got the Santa Claus Parade coming up in the not-too-distant future, and 56 days to, I think it was 56 was said.
53, but...
53, and I don't think that this is, all the amendments to the traffic bylaw are going to get through in the next 53 days to be realistic. So I certainly think this is a good idea. I agree with Councillors Adair concerned about piecemeal approach, but this is something that has to do with accessibility, and under the Ontarians with Disability Act, we're under an obligation to try and make our communities as accessible as possible, and that includes events as well as curb cuts and many other functions.
Councillor Adair.
I just wanted to, this issue has actually been around since the Olympic torch rally that we had. Terrific event, bitterly cold, but a terrific event, except that every single accessible parking space in the downtown was within the event area, and there were no accessible spaces for people to park and come to the event. So this has been making the rounds. What this will do is for the public and maybe for other councillors, and when we close off and make them accessible spaces, we will create one somewhere else, and it will change the bylaw to allow us to do that so that it can be enforced. Putting up temporary signs that aren't enforceable doesn't provide accessible parking, so that's what this will do.
Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have a report from the event facilitator, Mr. Cleverly, and with regards to the Tall Ships 2013 wrap-up report.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship, and it's wonderful to be here. I've brought my colleague Paul Eichhorn along for his final presentation to Council in his capacity as the Tall Ships Project Coordinator. If I could just get the screen up here, I'm going to start talking over an introductory video. You know, it's hard to believe it's only been a month since the Tall Ships event, or that it's already been a month for that matter, but time flies, and we were having a lot of fun. This video, which we're going to see getting started here, it starts out rather quietly. It's from the website worldbuzz.com, and I think it's just going to take us back. I'm just going to kind of talk a little bit over as an intro over it to what the event was all about and capture some of the excitement. It's fairly brief. But you'll certainly get an impression of a really good impression of the event, and it'll take us back. And by the way, this is embedded on the city website as well as the Tall Ships website, so it can be viewed by anybody through those websites.
Tall Ships Owen Sound event is now over. It was an amazing weekend from Friday, August the 16th to Sunday, August the 18th here in Owen Sound. We had over 10,000 people come down to this area in the harbor. It was packed, and there was music, there was kids activities, and of course the tall ships. People, I think, were really taken when they got to see them up close in person. Leanna's Ransom was going in and out over the weekend 5 times a day. People had a chance to see the sails up and really get a sense of what a tall ship is all about. We also had summer folk happening, so people really had a chance to spend a lot of time by the water. And it certainly came together, and the Parade of Sail on Sunday, of course, was an amazing event. The weather, of course, was beautiful every day. Blue skies, sunny, Temperatures were perfect, so we couldn't have asked for a better weekend. It's definitely something that, you know, Owen Sound I think would like to do again. Perfect place for this kind of event. We're certainly thankful to all our sponsors and volunteers and everybody who took part. It was a team effort, and without all the people who were involved, this wouldn't have happened. So thank you to them, and thank you to everybody who came to Owen Sound and the people who live here and enjoyed this event.
Paul, I think you stole some of your own thunder there.
That's okay, it's been said.
Let me just get this down here. We're just going to go into a very brief PowerPoint presentation, which is really a summary of the report that Council has with its agenda package. So, you know, we're not going to belabor the point too much. We just wanted to kind of wrap things up, and we don't want to be completely beating, you know, banging our own drum here. And we also don't want to focus only on the positives, but there are a lot of positives coming out of that and out of the event, and I think there's a lot of lessons that are learned, that we've learned as well. Certainly in terms of attendance, as mentioned in the video, 6,000 boarding passes were sold out 2 days before the event. We sold 1,050 excursion tickets by late July, so more than 2 weeks before the event. Over 10,000 people visited the event site over the weekend. We estimate, based on the number of cars that were parked and people who were packed along the sides of the harbor and the bay, that over 20,000 people viewed the Parade of Sail on the final day of the event. And thanks to our strong ticket sales, our fantastic sponsors, and the revenue generation that we produced through the project, we are in a small budget surplus position at the end of the day. And we're very pleased with that. And of course, Council will have a chance to review the full financial report once everything has settled, which takes a little bit longer. I'm going to turn it over to Paul now, to Mr. Eichhorn. He's going to talk a little bit about some of the other highlights, very briefly, from the report.
I think the video did kind of give you the full story of how things turned out, but just quickly, we had, of course, great media exposure both locally and also in the greater regional area. We had a great feature article in the Waterloo Region Record, and a lot of people came from that area, and I think that was a big reason for that. We had extensive print and radio advertising, and I'm sure you heard a lot of it and saw it in the Sun-Times. Social media was terrific. In just over 3 months, we had 1,400 followers on social media with a reach of over 25,000, which is really phenomenal. And that's actually more than you would get with a typical display advertisement in a local newspaper these days. So that shows you the impact of social media today. Interestingly, our website, again, really popular, 23,000 website visits. Highest number came from Toronto, which I think is really great for this area. That means people from outside of this area, particularly Canada's largest city, are paying attention to us, and they're going to come here and visit, and that's terrific. And again, the event program was very well received and provided a lot of information, and that was a great initiative that we brought in for this event. Community partnerships, again, to say the least, Georgian Bay Folk Society, they had a great event, Summer Folk, and their entertainers were there, and people loved that, and that really brought something to our event, and we really thank them for working with us on that. The Navy League Cadets, of course, you saw them in the video. Those young people were hard at work as volunteers, and they also were part of the opening and closing ceremonies. And let me tell you, they really enjoyed, they got to go out in the pride on the Parade of Sail, and that was a great way to give them a little something back, and they'll never forget that, and that was really nice to see. The Owen Sound DIA, of course, you saw the windows downtown. That worked out amazing. A lot of people got to know about the event because of those windows, and we were very happy to work with them. And again, the wristband promotion was also well received, and a lot of people were downtown shopping, and that was the point of that. Museums and Art Gallery, of course, provided free activities for all ages over the 3 days. And again, a lot of people also went to those venues, and we noticed that in the surveys we've done to date, a lot of people went to other attractions, not only the Tall Ships and Summer Folk, but to the Art Gallery and to the Billy Bishop. So in a sense, it really worked out for everybody, I think. And again, the Kiwanis Club was a great partner, providing both food and beverage services, and it was great to have them on board. Just quickly, positive impact for sure. Out-of-town visitors, based on our ticket sales, 42% from out of the area. And that means they came in, they went to restaurants. We saw a lot of survey information. People had meals here. Hotels, of course, if you could get a room. It was a busy weekend. And also, again, the other attractions. Owen Sound got tons of exposure. And this is just a rough idea, but we're probably talking $100,000 of display advertising via all the other promotions we did. So in a sense, it's advertising that the city of Owen Sound could not do on its own. So this event really got us impact across the province. And I think we're going to see dividends from that moving forward. And again, that's what makes this such a great event. And it was a showcase for the harbor, as you saw in the video. I don't think you could find, the weather was perfect, obviously, but that harbor was just a buzz. And I think that it really shows what we can do with that in this area. So just a great time, I think, all across the board. And again, thanks to our supporters, the city, of course, for coming forward and getting this ball rolling. Our key sponsors, a lot of local ones like P&H, the Sydenham at Owen Sound, Investment Planning Council, Owen Sound, the Bayshore Broadcasting, Kiwanis. Again, those people are really important. And just this is my last moment here in this position. I just want to thank my colleague, Doug Cleverly, Dan Blankensop, who of course was our event associate. Lisa Crookshank's not here tonight, our marketing associate, and she did an amazing job. But also to the entire city staff who supported this in so many ways, and of course to council, because with your vision to help move this forward. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We're just going to wrap up with one final slide, which is a beautiful letter to the editor of the Sun-Times, in which visitors from Peterborough said that they visited, they were very impressed, and it was their first visit to Owen Sound, and they plan to come back. It's a friendly city that obviously enjoys its history and present day, and the happy pride that showed on all the volunteers' faces. So I thought that was a nice way to sum it up. And I just want to echo Paul's comments, and again, just thank him and thank the other members of the team, Dan Blankensop, who is here tonight, and Lisa Crookshank as well. They were absolutely phenomenal to work with. It was an amazing experience for me as event facilitator to actually have a team to work with, to put together a major event, and of course, to our volunteer coordinator, David Moss-Cornett, and all of the volunteers who did just a fantastic job, many of them putting in full days to make this event happen. So I'd like to call and request council and members present for a round of applause for staff and volunteers. And also to reiterate what Paul said about other departments. Everybody was really great to work with on this. Operations, the parks staff, the tourism staff, everybody we pulled together and made a tremendous event. And I do want to just reiterate that we have learned from the experience. There were a few glitches, there were some problems, but generally speaking, the vast majority of the public really enjoyed the experience of the event. And where there were problems, we've identified them and made recommendations. Should the city ever choose to do a Tall Ships event again, I think we can definitely make some improvements. Also, I want to thank our IT staff who really helped out a lot on many levels in terms of the website, social media, and also getting internet down on the site for us, which was very important as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that. I know that the Director of Community Services is wanting to comment.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Cleverly has summed up exactly what I wanted to say. I just, certainly thanks to Doug, Paul, Dan, and Lisa, your enthusiasm for this event for months on end. You lived and breathed the event every day. You were a great team in community services. It's certainly quiet with you guys mostly gone. And certainly thanks to all city departments for your support of the event, the volunteers, council for your support and belief in moving this thing forward, and thanks to the public who supported the event. So great work, guys.
Thank you.
Councillor Lemon.
Well, that was certainly an excellent, we've had two good videos tonight. It's become a nice feature to have. One of the things that was not in the report, and I saw on television, and I don't know how many times prior to the event, Tall Ships Overgroup were advertising where the tall ships were going next. And Owen Sound got a lot of mentions, and the Georgian Bay area got a lot of mentions on all those TV clips that were on, and I think that has an economic benefit to us, and I think you're conservative at the $100,000 estimate. I think it was far greater than that, because people are just finally starting to discover Owen Sound, that we have to bring in the tall ships or the classic cars, which were out at Cobble Beach a short time ago. A lot of those people, like a lot of the people who were there, didn't know Owen Sound before, but now do.
Thank you, and thank you again for such a successful event. It was just a great event for the city. It was a great event for everyone who lives here, and it was great to host so many visitors. So I thank you on behalf of council for all the work that all of you did on this. It takes an enormous amount of people power to put an event on of this size and this scale, and from all perspectives, it was a great success. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe we'll go to video reports. There is a recommendation. Councillor Lemon.
I would move the recommendation.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We now have a report from the Director of Operations with regards to the Owen Sound Transit Terminal temporary operation costs. What is council's direction on this? Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that we note and file the report. We, at our special meeting on transit in June, voted on this issue twice, actually. The closing of the bus terminal was a motion that we would close it regardless of whether we had a 3 or a 4 route system. Council voted in favor of doing that. Then Councillor Lemon at that same meeting asked for a recorded vote. Councillor Lemon did vote to close the terminal, as did Councillor Chamberlain and myself and a majority of council. So in fact, at that meeting, we voted on it twice. This report doesn't provide us with any new information. We knew that it would cost money to keep the terminal open, which was why we had the debate at the time in June to proceed with keeping it open or to close. I think we had the debate then. There isn't any new information, and so I would move that we note and file.
Okay, the motion is to note and file. Councillor Wright.
Thank you very much. I kind of expected that Councillor Adair would bring that motion forth, so I went back and looked at the motion that we did approve, and the motion that I voted against was a 3-route system. And that went through, that's no question, that won, so we're going to a 3-route system. And that we would close the terminal with a 3-route system. However, we're not going to have a 3-route system till the 1st of April. So that might be a technicality, but we do not have a 3-route system until April 1st. And that vote was to close it with a 3-route system. That's, to the best of my knowledge, that's the way it was, that we close the terminal with a 3-route system, or we keep it open. But it was voted to close with the 3-route system, and we're not going to have that till April. So I, quite frankly, don't see anything wrong with discussing this now. I won't support that motion.
Councillor Chamberlain. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
Did you have your hand up? Well, that's my mistake. Councillor Lemon.
Well, Your Worship, I agree with Councillor Wright. I think that is my recollection of what occurred at the time. And earlier tonight, we saw the situation where we voted to agree to the closing of the Marine Rail Museum, and now looks like we've reversed ourselves. In this case, we don't have to reverse ourselves because at that time it was not envisioned how long it would be till the 3-route system went in, and I don't want to see people suffering in the cold in the winter, and I will also be voting against the motion, and we will wait for a subsequent motion.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
I would ask for a recorded vote.
Absolutely. I'll ask the clerk to poll council.
Councillor Adair.
In favor.
Councillor Boddy.
In favor?
Councillor Chamberlain.
Opposed?
Councillor Lemon.
Opposed.
Councillor McManaman.
In favor.
Councillor Purdon.
Opposed?
Councillor Twaddle.
In favor?
Councillor Wright.
Opposed?
Mayor Haswell.
In favor.
That motion is carried with 5 in favor and 4 opposed.
Thank you. We have a report. This is to repeal a bylaw
Your worship,
Councillor Lemon.
I would like to make a follow-up motion. We noted and filed this without discussing it at all, and I don't think that is appropriate. And it's really very, very disappointing because this has a suggestion of how economically it could be done, and I will be filing a notice of motion. I intend to bring this back to council.
Okay. We have a report to repeal a bylaw, which is bylaw 2013-038. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. Just a question for the Director of Operations. So this bylaw was never in effect in that stretch between 18th Avenue and the end of the city. Is that correct?
I may ask some assistance from the clerk just to determine whether it was actually in effect. But we did pass the bylaw on the pretext that the Ministry of Transportation required council to pass a bylaw supporting the request for a reduction in speed. They subsequently denied our request for a reduction in speed, and so therefore the bylaw becomes moot.
Maybe just further, my real question, I suppose, is at no time was there a reduction in speed on this stretch of road?
No, there was not.
All right. That's fine. I'll move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. We have a report 12C1. This is bylaw committee minutes. Council's direction on this. Yes. We have a few sets of minutes, actually. Report on parking administration, the workplace violence and harassment policies, community planning, and financial advisory committee. It's council's direction on these items. Councillor Adair.
I'll move the minutes, Your Worship.
Thank you. We had our moment of silence at the beginning of the meeting, Council. Any discussion on any of the items in that set of minutes, or those sets of minutes? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. In-camera minutes for approval. Council's direction. Councilor McManaman.
So moved, Your Worship.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We are at other business. We have a number of items from other business. Councillor Body.
Thank you, Your Worship. As you're aware, to remind the public, the Art Gallery is celebrating the 100th anniversary of Tom Thompson starting in 2012, which is last year, his first year that he went to Algonquin Park, leading up to 2017, which is 100th anniversary of him dying in Canoe Lake, 50th anniversary of the Art Gallery, 150th anniversary of Canada, coincidentally 100th anniversary of Bishop getting the Silver Cross. So those are all things that are, the museum board has, Victoria Cross, sorry, all tied into that year. Canadian Spirit is set up by the Art Gallery, the dream of Ms. Eichhorn, Virginia. And this year's theme, I got to remember this, is One with the North. There's 6 or 8 art galleries across the country that are participating, doing their own festivity in their own town, celebrating with us, celebrating Thompson. So I want to congratulate the coordinator, Matt Standen, and Virginia, and all the staff over at the Art Gallery that did a fantastic job with the Canadian Spirit Festival this year. It was co-hosted with Saugeen First Nations. They had 3,600 people there, which for a second year was pretty neat, and especially when you consider how cold and damp it was. The concert with Tribe Called Red and the Darcys Saturday night, I think, was a happening event. And we look forward to next year. I just wanted to congratulate the people that put it on for their success, and we can hardly wait for future.
Great, thank you. Busy weekend here indeed. Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Your Worship. A couple things. Brian Roberts has certainly produced a very excellent sort of fact or Q&A sheet in regards to what's happening with public transit. And I think our riders are very interested in getting the facts, not conjecture and innuendo and sometimes just outright falsehoods. And we've done a very good job of getting it onto social media and making it available, but, and this might be a radical idea, but what about printing up some copies and having them on the bus, where our bus riders actually are? That's where they are every day. I don't know if I need to make that as a motion, just perhaps a direction to staff to print some of those up and get them
I
on.
can't imagine a member of council voting against or not supporting
get those on,
informing the riders.
On the buses, and as soon as we know when we're having the workshops on the new routes, I think some posters on the buses as well. I'm all for social media. I think it's a great way of getting the information out, but the riders are on the bus. We know where they are. We need to go out there. The other is around the same issue, and it's more of a question to staff, and perhaps Mr. Roberts knows this, and it gets back to a couple of weeks ago, Councillor Purdon asked about the signage. And I've been thinking a lot about the signs that say, you're at this stop sign, or you're at this bus stop. How far can we go with the technology that our new contractor will be bringing? When I was in London, Ontario, not the other London, you would go to a bus stop and there was a little plaque that told you that the next bus was coming at 10:47. Mm-hmm. And the one after that was at 11:17, and it told you when at that bus stop the next bus was coming. I know in Barrie right now you can walk up to the bus stop, get out your phone and call the number on the bottom, and it tells you, the bus will be there in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15. How far can we push this technology?
Through your worship, certainly from a standpoint of being able to have the signage that you're speaking about that actually has the times when the bus actually comes through, that is not new technology. That is certainly something we can endeavor to do, and is something that we're looking at doing with respect to the bus route system. The technology with respect to a mobile app where a person can basically, the new buses will have GPS applications on them. They're used by our new operator to basically track the buses and their purposes. My understanding is that is going to be or can be available to track for a public purpose. If not, we certainly can work with them on a mobile application, which is something council did support from a recommendation as far as the transit system review.
Just further to that, I don't have a smartphone, so if I have a cell phone or I'm at my home and I know that I'm going down to the bus stop at the end of can I call a phone number and get that information, or do I need to have a BlackBerry or an iPhone or something?
There is a phone number that's available that will be directly routed to the new transit operator. They certainly can give you information about what stop and what time it would be estimated would be. There may even be some opportunities for us to work with them to actually have an automated message which simply would say, what is your bus stop number? It will give you the time cycles as to expect your bus. The benefits of our transit system is that it is a fixed time, so if you know that you live in a certain location, you're taking a certain bus stop, you know that bus stop is going to hit those points and times at least twice every hour. You just need to remember what hours that time it would be at.
All right, so that we would be making up signs, bus signs,
Yep.
bus stop signs, that would give people the information that they can either, when it's coming, or they can call a number and find out. And I guess my question would be, how do we make sure that happens?
That might be a good thing for a motion.
I'll wait till staff answers my question and then I'll proceed.
Certainly, yes, as the city manager is suggesting, I can certainly prepare a report that would speak to all the issues with respect to signage, numbers to call, and cost.
That would be my motion, Your Worship, that we get a staff report on on signage, the technology, the costs. I think we, particularly with the new operator, but we had decided we were going to put GPS tracking on the buses anyway. I don't see why the public can't get that information. It's not just an internal thing for the operator. So I would move that we ask for staff report for this information, and I thank Councillor Purdon for getting that started and getting me thinking about it.
Councillor Purdon.
I wondered if part of the report we could also look at ways of using those signs for advertisers or to get some sponsorship to mitigate some of the costs. It's a bus stop is a place where people stand and look at things, so there might be some opportunity there. Maybe other communities have used some of those approaches.
Friendly amendment?
Absolutely.
Okay. To the motion, further discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you, Councillor Adair. Did you have any other items? Okay. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a couple of questions, if I might, through you to our community services about, I suspect that the report on the numbers involved in minor hockey is going to go to recreation. I'd like to know when or how soon we'll know the numbers for minor hockey, minor sport actually, for this term. I also would like to know when the policy respecting non-residents will be coming back to council, because I believe we were going to look at it this year. And I'm also asking that not the committee that did it last year, but that a committee be formed to renegotiate or to go back to negotiating with our close municipalities with respect to seeing if we can't get an agreement for the 2014 sports season.
Through you, Your Worship, perhaps I'll leave number 3 for council to discuss, but in terms of number 1, the numbers, I know just last week an email went to our minor sport groups asking them to make sure they get to us their numbers for 2013 participation, so that includes spring and summer and fall and winter sports. Some of them are just finalizing registration, so we expect those soon. Certainly they'll go through Rec and Parks. My recollection is on the non-resident policy that last year when council approved it, probably in December, we said that we would do an annual review. So that is slated. It's on the work plan for Rec and Parks. I would say that will happen either at the November or the December meeting, and in terms of the committee, I would leave that to council.
Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Worship. Just on the issue of setting up a committee or renegotiating with our neighbors, some of us are going to the invitation to discuss all of these sorts of things to Meaford later this week, and maybe I think the discussions are going to be fairly informal at that meeting, and maybe we can at least chat to some of our fellow councillors and our neighbors and see where we can go.
Further discussion? Okay. Councillor Lemon, you have 2 items of other business.
Your Worship, I do, and they have to do with an antiquity in and of himself coming to town. That's Gordy Tap, and this is going for the Community Waterfront Center. The show is going on at the Harmony Center in the auditorium of the old church, and the tickets are $20. It's on Saturday, October 12th, and it's going to be really, really a great event. And just to remind people that the cruise down from Tobermory to Owen Sound will be a fundraiser also for the Community Waterfront Center. We're extremely good at raising money, obviously. These events, Gordy Tap is 91, to answer the question of you remember him as a kid. A lot of us do, and we thought he was old then. But anyway, that's some good news. One question I do have that I meant to put on the list. I understand 2 bus engines went last week, and I was wondering, do we pay for that, or is that covered in the contract we currently have?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yes, the question was, 2 buses went down, the engines are being replaced or have been replaced. I understand that cost to be around $50,000. Where is that in our budget?
The cost is about $15,000. I'm not sure if you said 50 or 15.
I thought it was much more than that.
Yeah, that is the cost, that we've got a price from Miller to do it. That cost is our cost, and it would come out of our reserves.
And that's 15 each bus or 15 total?
15 each.
So that's 30,000. Okay, I'd heard a higher number than that, but I was concerned. Thank you.
Councillor Chamberlain.
Yes, my item has to do with Celebration for Conservation. I have the privilege of being on that board this year, and this is a fundraiser for their foundation. It's a dinner with entertainment. Peter Reese will be doing the jazz trio, and Johnny Guardhouse will be the comedian speaker after supper. So the fundraising is a silent auction and a live auction, and it is this Friday, September 27th, at 6 o'clock at the Bayshore Community Center. So I just wanted to celebrate conservation. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I have 2 items. One, Councillor Dare touched on this Thursday at 2 o'clock at the Woodford Community Center. We will be attending a meeting called by Meaford Council, and that is to discuss their views on potential partnering with the city and with other municipalities on services. Also, just to advise council that I've had a very humbling invitation, and this is to attend a reception for the regiment's Colonel-in-Chief, the Princess Royal Princess Anne, and this is being held at the Barrie South Shore Centre in Barrie, Ontario. Some of us will remember in 1979, Princess Anne visited Owen Sound and the garrison here of the Grey and Simcoe Foresters, and she is now returning to visit, and this time visiting the city of Barrie, and I will be attending, representing the city, and I'm very much looking forward to that opportunity. It's a very exciting opportunity. So, Councillor Adair, or Councillor Wright, I'm sorry.
Do I look like David tonight?
No.
Is that why you keep calling me Councillor Adair? I just, when in 1979 she was here, and that she was in these council chambers, and they had us all lined up in 2 rows to meet us. The most important people were in the front row, and then the lesser people were in the back row. And it was very interesting because we were lined up. They had mayors and their wives and former mayors and their wives and MPs, et cetera, and then a few of us token people were back behind. But we didn't get a chance to. And the one thing for sure was you sure didn't want to speak to her before she spoke to you, or you got looked down on, and she would certainly turn her nose down at you or up at you. But it was most interesting. We were all told to wear hats and gloves and how to behave. It was very interesting. So you get prepared.
Yes,
Dr. Haswell.
there's a whole team working on this.
Not a Bobcat, Your Worship.
There's a team working on this royal presentation, let me tell you. Thank you for that. Okay, we're finished with other business. Motion that the committee rise, please. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Resolution adopting proceedings in committee of the whole.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Boddy, that action taken committee of the whole in considering public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business be hereby confirmed by this council.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We are now in formal session. I will ask if we have any notices of motion. Councillor Adair.
I had already given you notice that I was going to bring forth a notice of motion.
We have 2 notices of motion then. You're on your feet. We'll go with you first, Councillor Lemon.
I hereby give notice I will move or cause to be moved a motion at the next regular council meeting to review the report from staff pertaining to the transit terminal and then reconsider the decision to note and file.
Okay. Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Your Worship. I hereby give notice that I will move or cause to be moved a motion at the next regular council meeting to cancel the request for proposal process for the CN Rail Station and any relevant groups be notified.
Thank you. Any other notices of motion? New business by resolution?
None.
Thank you. Bylaws, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Boddy. The bylaws number 2013-178, 179, and 180 be hereby passed and enacted.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried, and we're now adjourned. Have a good evening.